Today, I'm going to teach you more English phrasal verbs that you can use at home, at the workplace, or anywhere. I will help you become smarter, become more fluent, and speak English with confidence. But before anything else, I want to welcome you to Crushing English, where you will get free English lessons. If you are starting to learn the language, or maybe you simply want to improve your English skills, then please like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. Now let's begin. What are phrasal verbs anyway? Phrasal verbs are special words in English made by putting a verb, which is an action word, together with another word like up or out, and this changes the meaning of the verb in a unique way. So you can use phrasal verbs in sentences that may not necessarily mean exactly what they state, but completely change the meaning and make it something else. So here's why it's important to learn them, especially if you want to be more fluent. First, they are used a lot. People use phrasal verbs often when they talk, especially in friendly conversations. Second, they make English sound right. So knowing phrasal verbs helps you talk more like a native English speaker and understand them better. Third, you know what's happening. Phrasal verbs can have tricky meanings, but understanding them helps you know what's happening in a sentence. Fourth, you can listen and understand better. When people talk in English, they often use phrasal verbs. Learning them helps you understand what they're saying. Fifth, you can speak and write better. Using phrasal verbs makes you sound better when you speak or write in English. It's like you're a native English speaker even if you're not really trying to be. It helps you say exactly what you mean. Sixth, it's very important when you're trying to get a job or you want to do well in school. So it's not just for talking with your friends. They're also important for daily conversation. Seventh, tests and exams. If you are planning to take an English test like the TOEFL or the IELTS, you might see phrasal verbs in these tests, and knowing them can help you do very well. Now let's begin. Let's go with our first phrasal verb, account for. Account for means to explain or to give reasons for something. Here's our first example. The manager asked him to account for the extra expenses in his report. Here's a second example. Can you account for the delay in the project timeline? So again, account for means to explain or to give reasons for something. Second phrasal verb is back up. To back up means to make a copy or support. So you see here it has two meanings, to make a copy and the other meaning is to support. Here's the first example. It's important to back up your computer files regularly at work, because we all know what happens when we don't back up our files. They may end up getting deleted or lost. Second example, the team will back you up in the meeting if you need support. So to back up is just another meaning of the word support. So in this case, since it may be awkward to use the word support in the same sentence, we use the phrasal verb back up to explain the same thing. Okay, here's our third phrasal verb, break down. To break down means to stop working or to analyze in parts. Okay, the first example is the photocopier broke down, so we had to call IT for repairs. Now here's the second example. Let's break down the project into smaller tasks for better management. So again, to break down has two meanings. The first is to stop working, and the other is to analyze in parts. The fourth phrasal verb is call off. To call off means to cancel an event or a plan. So here's the first example. Due to bad weather, they had to call off the outdoor team building activity. And here's the second example. The manager decided to call off the late night meeting. So again, to call off means to cancel an event or a plan. And now here's the fifth phrasal verb. Carry out. To carry out means to do or to complete a task. So here's the first example. The team will carry out the customer satisfaction survey. Here's the second example. She will carry out the instructions provided in the training manual. So as you can see, again, to carry out means to do or to complete a task. It's another way of saying doing. Now our sixth phrasal verb is check in. To check in means to register your arrival or to make contact. When you say register your arrival, it's like, you know, when you are checking in a hotel, you've just arrived at the hotel and you want the hotel staff to know that you're there, you say, I would like to check in. So this is a phrasal verb. So here's the first example. Employees should check in at the reception desk upon arrival. Now here's the second example, which means to make contact. Please check in with the supervisor before starting your shift. So if you want to make contact with somebody or you want to communicate with somebody, you can also say that you are checking in with them. Now here's the seventh phrasal verb, cut back. To cut back means to reduce or to use less of something. So here's the first example. The company had to cut back on office expenses due to budget constraints. And now here's the second example. Let's cut back on unnecessary meetings to save time. So again, to cut back means to reduce or to use less of something. Now the next phrasal verb is fill out. To fill out means to complete a form or to write information. So the first example is new employees need to fill out their contact information on the HR form. Now here's the second example. Please fill out the expense report with your travel expenses. So again, to fill out means to complete something. Usually you say this when you are trying to fill out a form or you're trying to write information in a document. You are filling out the form or the document. Now here's the ninth phrasal verb, go over. To go over means to review or to examine carefully. The first example is the manager will go over the project plan with the team. Now here's the second example. Let's go over to the sales figures for the last quarter. Usually you will see this when you are at work or at school and you have to go back to something. You've read something once and you have to go back to see it again for the second time. Hold off. To hold off means to delay or to wait. So here's the first example. They decided to hold off on launching the new product until next month. Here's the second example. Please hold off on making any decisions until we have more data. So again, to hold off means to delay or to wait or to put it for some other time. Now our 11th phrasal verb is lay off. To lay off means to let go or to no longer employ someone. So when you get fired from your job, you say that you were laid off, or you can also say that there were layoffs at your company. Here's our first example. The company had to lay off several employees due to a decline in sales. Now here's a second example. She heard that the company might lay off workers if profits didn't improve. Okay, so once more, to lay off means to let go or to no longer employ someone. Now, the 12th phrasal verb is look into. To look into is to investigate or research. Here's our first example. The IT department will look into the computer system issue. So it means that they will check what's going on. Here's our second example. We need to look into potential suppliers for the new project. So you're going to search, you're going to find new potential suppliers. So again, to look into means to investigate or to research. Now the 13th phrasal verb is put off. To put off means to postpone or delay. So here's our first example. The manager decided to put off the meeting until tomorrow. Here's our second example. Let's put off discussing the proposal until everyone is present. So again, the phrasal verb put off means to postpone or delay. Now here's the 14th phrasal verb, run out of. To run out of means to have none left or to use everything. So here's our first example. We ran out of printer paper, so we need to order more. Here's our second example. The kitchen ran out of coffee and we need it for the morning meeting. Okay, so again, to run out of means to have less of something or to have completely nothing of that something. Now here's our 15th phrasal verb, set up. To set up means to arrange or to start something. The first example is the IT team will set up the computer system in the office. Okay, so the new computer system wasn't there before, but now it will be because the IT team will set it up. Now here's the second example. Let's set up a meeting to discuss the project's timeline. Let's start a meeting. Okay, so again, to set up means to arrange or to start something. The 16th phrasal verb is take on. To take on means to accept or to begin a responsibility. Here's our first example. She decided to take on the task of organizing the team building event. So it's something that she decided to do. She decided to have the responsibility for that task. Here's the second example. Let's set up a meeting to discuss the project's timeline. So once again, take on means to accept or to begin a responsibility. Now the 17th phrasal verb is turn down. To turn down means to refuse or to say no to something. Here's our first example. The company had to turn down the client's request for a discount. Okay, so the company didn't want to honor or didn't want to accept the client's request. Now here's our second example. Unfortunately, they turned down his application for the job. Okay, so once again, to say turn down means to say no to something. Okay, so the 18th phrasal verb is to work out. To work out means to solve or to find a solution. But you may also know the phrasal verb of workout when you're talking about exercise. But in the business context, to work out means to just solve or to find a solution. So here's our first example. The team needs to work out the issues in the project plan. Here's a second example. Let's work out a compromise that satisfies both parties. So again, it's something that you are trying to solve. Okay, so that's the meaning of the phrasal verb work out. You're trying to solve it. You're trying to find a solution for it. The 19th phrasal verb is break through. To break through means to succeed after difficulty. Here's our first example. After many attempts, they finally broke through the market competition. Okay, so in this case, after many attempts, they finally succeeded. Okay, so that's the meaning of breakthrough or broke through if it's already in the past tense. Here's the second example. We need to break through the challenges to meet our sales targets. Okay, so once again, the phrasal verb break through means to succeed after difficulty. Now the 20th phrasal verb is bring in. To bring in means to introduce or to hire someone. So here's our first example. The company decided to bring in a consultant to improve efficiency. Here's our second example. They want to bring in new talent to strengthen the team. So once again, to bring in means to introduce or to hire someone. Okay? So the next phrasal verb is come up with. To come up with means to think of or to create an idea. Here's our first example. Can you come up with a creative slogan for the ad campaign? Here's our second example. She came up with a new strategy to increase customer engagement. So again, to come up with means to think of or to create an idea. You're coming up with something new. Okay, so the next phrasal verb is get by. To get by means to manage or to survive with what's available. Here's our first example. During tough times, we have to get by with fewer resources. Okay, so to get by is another meaning for manage. So maybe you had a lot of resources before, but now you don't, but it's okay. You can still get by. Here's our second example. The team can get by with the tools they have until the new ones arrive. Okay, so again, to get by means to manage or to survive with what's available. Now the 23rd phrasal verb is hold on. To hold on means to wait for a short time. Here's our first example. Please hold on for a moment while I find the requested document. Here's another example. Hold on, I'll check if the manager is available for a meeting. So it's another way of saying, wait a minute, just a second, I'll get back to you. Okay, so that's the meaning of hold on. Next, the 25th phrasal verb is pass on. To pass on is to give or share something with someone. So here's the first example. He decided to pass on his knowledge to the new team members. Here's our second example. Please pass on this message to your colleagues. Okay, so it's something that you are sharing with someone or you're giving to someone. This is the meaning of the phrasal verb pass on. The 26th phrasal verb is phase out. To phase out means to gradually or slowly stop using or doing something. So when you are going to an Apple store and you want to buy an iPhone 5, they will tell you, sorry, that model has already been phased out. It's no longer available. So this is the meaning of phase out. So here's our first example. The company plans to phase out paper forms and switch to digital ones. Here's our second example. We should phase out the old software to improve productivity. Okay, so again, to phase out means to stop using or to stop doing something. 27th phrasal verb, scale up. To scale up means to increase or expand something. So here's our first example. The company aims to scale up production to meet growing demand. Okay, they have to do something more to meet the growing demand. Here's the second example. We need to scale up our marketing efforts to reach a wider audience. Okay, so once again, to scale up means to increase or to expand something. The 28th phrasal verb is sort out. To sort out means to organize or to solve a problem. Here's our first example. We need to sort out the office supplies for the upcoming conference. Here's our second example. Let's sort out the confusion regarding project deadlines. So to sort out means you are either organizing or you are trying to fix something. So the 29th phrasal verb is take over. To take over means to gain control or responsibility for something. Here's the first example. The senior manager will take over the project while the team lead is on vacation. So in this case, when you say take over, it means that while the team lead is on vacation, the senior manager will do his responsibilities or will do his tasks. Okay, so the second example is the new CEO plans to take over the company's strategic direction. Okay, so again, to take over means to gain control or responsibility for something. Now, the 30th phrasal verb is write off. To write off means to decide that something is a loss or is not worth pursuing. It's not worth continuing or completing. So here's our first example. The company had to write off the unpaid invoices as a loss. Here's a second example. We should write off the old equipment since it's no longer usable. So again, to write off means to decide that something is a loss or not worth pursuing. The 31st phrasal verb is back out. To back out means to decide not to do something you agreed to. Okay, so let's pretend that you are at a party and they want to go to another party, which before you said that you were going to go, but then at the last minute you backed out. You're not going anymore. Here's our first example. He didn't want to back out of the commitment to lead the presentation. Here's a second example. It's not a good idea to back out of the team project at this stage. So again, to back out means to decide not to do something that you already agreed to. The 32nd phrasal verb is bring up. To bring up means to mention or talk about something. Here's the first example. During the meeting, she will bring up the idea of a company picnic. Here's a second example. You can bring up any concerns or suggestions in the team discussion. So again, to bring up means to mention or to talk about something. It's something that you plan to talk about. The 33rd phrasal verb is carry forward. To carry forward means to move something from one place to another. So here's our first example. You can carry forward your unused vacation days to the next year. So let's say in 1 year you have 20 vacation days, but you didn't use them. So next year you're going to have 40 vacation days. Here's our second example. Let's carry forward the positive aspects of this project to the next one. So again, to carry forward means to move something from one time or place to another. Now, the 34th phrasal verb is check out. To check out means to look at or to examine something. Here's the first example. Don't forget to check out the new project catalog on the website. Here's the second example. The manager asked the team to check out the competitor's pricing strategy. So again, to check out means to look at or to examine something. Now, the 35th phrasal verb is cut in. To cut in means to interrupt or to join a conversation or activity. Here's an example. He didn't mean to cut in while they were discussing the project. Here's another example. Please don't cut in when your colleague is speaking during the presentation. Okay, so once again, cut in means to interrupt or to join a conversation or activity. Okay, so if you reached this far, I want to thank you for staying with me until the very end. I hope that you learned something new and that you can use any of these phrasal verbs in your future English conversations so you will be more fluent and you will be speaking soon like a native English speaker. If you feel that you learned something new from this video, please do give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of my future videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.